Well, welcome to our Neuro Training 2.0 BYOG Party. I'm Dr. Ryan Wolfert, and I have a regular on our party here, and he's actually hosted with me before. He's going to be doing most of the educational part of this, and it sounds, I don't want to say educational, but that's kind of what it is. Because what I do with these is I like to bring people on that I can help that can help show you solutions to live a healthy, long, active, energetic life, not just now, but for the rest of your life, and help fix common problems that we have. And Joe, he was with me on a previous one, Master Your Brain, and we did a lot of brain drills, and we're going to reiterate a lot of that today too, because since then, since the last time we've done this with Joe, he and I have created this program, the Neurospine and Posture program. Some of you here, some of you watching the replay, maybe you've gone through that program, but we learned a lot since then, and we're going to be re-upping it. This is version 2.0. Joe's going to take over the reins now, and he's going to get us going. What do you say, Joe?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. The version 1 of our program really got all the information out there. And now I want to, add to the initial BYOG party that we had and add to the program that we've created. So that's what we're about to do here today. So I will go ahead and share my screen. The topic being the higher order systems. And sometimes I talk a little intellectual and it's like, well, what does that all mean? And inside of our nervous system, we have these different layers, and that's what we're going to uncover here today. And these are the keys to unlocking your spinal health and creating sustainable pain relief. Like if you know how to do drills that impact your systems and you're feeling pain, then you can potentially do your drills and remove or reduce the pain significantly. So that can look a lot of different ways for people, but Dr. Ryan and I are two guys that are very passionate about longevity and really taking care of ourselves and being your own guarantee, which is the call here today, right? It's a party. So here today, we're going to uncover the higher order systems, how to use them that can keep you safe, understand your threat thermometer, and the reasons pain is the #1 threat indicator, how to assess your threat level at any time, any place, at any moment. And then we'll go over some simple exercises that can kind of, so you can assess and reassess yourself and see, are you in threat or are you bringing your thermometer of threat down? Are you feeling safer? Okay. So on the first call, we talked about the concerns. What concerns you most about aging? And a couple of the responses were balance, the fears of falling down, the fears of not being able to play with the grandchildren and being active with them. Another topic that we covered was what concerns you most about your spine and your posture. And a couple of the responses were, the humpback that people can kind of fear of their head moving forward and their spine and their health just gradually getting worse as we age. Does it have to be that way? Right. And feel free if there's some stuff that you're specifically dealing with or you want to chat about right now, like throw that stuff into the comments here and we can absolutely be interactive through this whole process. So the other thing that we discussed was what does good posture make you think of? And for some people, it was standing up tall, standing straight, sitting up straight can be a common phrase that people tell you to do, or pull your shoulders back and have good posture. And they think that if we just get told these things over and over again, that we just go right to those postures. But it's deeper than that. And it gets into these higher order systems that we're going to be discussing here today. I'm reading the comments. Okay, you got that going. Cool. So what if your posture is based on more than your muscles? Because we often hear your muscles hold everything in place and it's all connected to your spine and that's how you stand up and it's all straight, right? What if your posture is the same question. These are your higher order systems. This is where I got confused earlier, Dr. Ryan. These are your higher order systems. It's your vision, your vestibular, which your vestibular system is your balance. It's what's going on between your ears. The canals in your ears each play a role. And then proprioception, which is movement, mobility, and sensory. So right away in the first class that we taught, we went really deep into the proprioception. And for people who have threat already, a lot of this has to do with figuring out remapping the body, which I'm going to get into a little bit more here. But why are these higher order systems so important? In about 2002, 70%, they came to the conclusion, and just, the research and published review studies, that 70% of our posture was based on our vision and our vestibular system. By 2010 to 2012, there's getting to 85, 90% that they believe our posture is based on our ability to not feel threat and be safe in our eyes, and not feel threat depending on how we're moving our head and which different directions. Does it create a fear inside of us that our body says, be safer, be safer? So an example might be somebody who walks with their feet closer together. Their vestibular system, their balance is going to feel safer. For somebody who walks with their legs really spread further apart, when they're walking, like, their vestibular system might not be as safe as it is, because otherwise their feet would come closer together, right? So the safety of what's going on and understanding what drills pertain to you as an individual, because you have only had your experiences, no one else. And if you've bumped your head, if you've had emotional things, like, all of these things play a role in what these systems, whether or not they're feeling safe, right? So these higher order systems, they're great for athletes, because at most skill levels, vision drills and vestibular drills fail to be assessed, right? Like, your basketball coach wasn't having you train your vestibular system and your balance system. And even some of the ways where they tell people to stand on something and practice to see your balance, like, that can be more threatening if you haven't done the foundational work of testing your vestibular system out to see where you're at, right? And this is just great for people who are physically declining in health, because if they think that they're aging and time makes them worse, if that's their belief system, then you're not even going to be able to recognize, if you don't know how to do these drills, whether you even feel safe or not. So even being here today, you're going to get an awareness for what some of these things are. So going forward, you're going to be like, oh, I see that person walking really wide. Like, their vestibular system must need some training. Like, once you know this stuff, you can't unsee it. So the proprioception, which I said plays a key role in safety, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more when I explain my story and my journey here. But this is how we begin to reconnect the body and to the map of our body. Like, how does our brain see and feel and connect with our body when we're moving through space? Like, what is our sense of movement? So in the first BYOG party, in the Master Your Brain, we talked about the medical system. And the medical system just kind of says, hey, come see us and we'll tell you what to do. And we talked about the credit card system, whether you're in debt or you're getting financially well. Like, are you going deeper and deeper in debt, or do you understand how to kind of like pay off your debt and get your resources so that you're really well? And these stories are right in line with our philosophy here of be your own guarantee, because don't rely on somebody else to say, hey, go and do this. Like, what are you feeling in your body? What do you know about yourself, so that when you go see a physical therapist, you go see a chiropractor, you go see a massage therapist, even if you go do reflexology, like, you can start to connect and understand what it's doing for your nervous system and how you do or don't feel safe. So what I learned when I completed my neuro training, becoming a neuro trainer, was that our nervous system is its own language. And that's what I was really trying to convey right there. If you can feel what's going inside yourself and what's going on and how you're connected to the world and you're moving through space, you can really understand your own nervous system, which really just gives you a one up for needing to help yourself feel better at any point in time. How do you test your vestibular system? Sharon, that's a great question. That's one of our entire modules that's in the program. So it's a little more deeper than what we can go into today in depth. And there's a layer that you have to set it up because the vestibular system can be really threatening. So if people kind of don't understand some of the stuff ahead of time, depending on who the individual is and what their history is, if we just did vestibular drills here today without knowing, like somebody could just trigger vertigo and then be knocked out and no one's there to help them, and that just wouldn't be cool, right? So we're not going to do any vestibular system training here today, but that's a great question. Thank you for asking. So my story here a little bit is I compound fractured my femur when I was 18. And in the journey of learning how to heal and the stuff that I did, when I was going through the neurology mentorship, I just kept connecting the dots as to why I was successful. Like I didn't even realize that what I was doing was neurologically based, but it just kept helping me in my entire recovery journey, even to the point where I finally found some really good neuro drills that stick for me, that really like hit home in my nervous system and make me jump up and pay attention. And that's all happened since the last time we had this BYOG party and during the process of the program as it was being recorded, right? So I understand the emotional shift and aspects to this because of my own experience, as much as I understand you can optimize performance in the athletic world doing these same types of drills. My mentor, who I have up on here as part of my story, the first time I connected with her on the phone, I had never felt in an immediate, like just seen so well through a 15-minute phone conversation in terms of me being me. And then that eventually led into 3 calls later where she's like, you should join our neurology mentorship. And I never really understood what made her presence so good. But she had had scoliosis, and she's one of the business founders of this entire neurology world that's like getting it out there to practitioners to do this better. So as I've been in the neurology mentorship, and even since the ending of it, she continually has notices in her own body and changes and shifts that her nervous system is making as she is constantly training it. And when I say constantly, it's not even as drastic as 45 minutes of going to the gym. Like we're talking simple drills, might take 30 seconds. Of course, if you're someone who goes to the gym, you can add these drills in and they can improve your performance in the gym, and you can mix it up and switch things, get them going, and really cool things can happen there. I'm gonna pause for a minute. Are there any questions? Dr. Ryan, any input?
Yeah. I mean, just going back to like the posture point, and like, for example, like when we talk about vision and vestibular being in, 70 to 80, 90% of our posture, what I go to is if you've been injured, for example, maybe you got a crink in your neck or maybe a more severe injury, you are not going to, like, your body will try to compensate for that injury by putting you into a less stressful position. So you might have your head and neck like this for a while, maybe like not long though. So you might be tipped, but one of the goals of your brain, again, keep you safe. It wants to make sure that your eyes stay level with the horizon. You don't see many people walking around with their head flexed to one side or the other. But what I do see on a daily basis is it might not be like this, but their head and eyes will get level again. But now look here, my head is still shifted to the side. My right shoulder is low. We see that quite a bit because that's the goal. And you might think, well, why doesn't your body correct that? Because it sticks there, because because the ligaments get tight. It's not about the muscles. That's a second point. It's not about the muscles. There's new research study that just came out showing how resetting the spine and actually correcting the spine. And one of the reasons it does that is because it takes stress off of the neurology and allows the connection between the brain better. But they compared correcting the spinal structure, which helps the function of the nervous system and brain, versus common exercises that people are doing, like physical therapists do, which I love physical therapy. We have it in our office, but it has to be combined with the neurology of it, with the structure of it too, because it doesn't correct that. But yes, your body is a master, your brain is a master of compensation to make sure that you don't feel the threat. But I wanted to add that in there. And just to reiterate this hierarchy, because that's what I think of these higher order systems. Like Joe had said, the vision is the biggest threat, or I don't want to say threat, but Joe can maybe explain that a little bit better. Like, we don't want to start with vision and vestibular right off the bat. The low-hanging fruit is the movement and sensory component of it. Is that correct, Joe? So again, if you're looking at the higher order systems, vision is the highest order, then vestibular, and then proprioception, which is the movement and sensation. And that's why we want to start with the movement and sensation first.
Correct. So most people end up being bottom up, which is saying, hey, we need to work on some proprioception. We need to remap the body. So as an example of this, and I'm going to demonstrate in full embarrassment that I'm not even good at these things, right? Like, my brain needs to be remapping these things, and there's work to do. And I'm going to show you my hand rather than my feet, but can you move one of your fingers in a circle in both directions without moving another one? Sure, my index is okay. I'm really struggling with my middle finger. I'd really want to move some more fingers, right? Like, can I do it with just my ring finger? Yeah. So it's like that retraining that then like reconnects things, that says, hey, this is cool, this is safe. So like, really, the first day we taught this connection, the movement, the sensory, the breathing, like, to me, that was the $1,000 program right there. Like, that was it in that first call, because that's what so many people need to be able to do, is just build the map back in their brain, add to the map in the brain. The neuroplasticity always wants to grow. I love that you gave the example to the vision system. So I want to add to that with the vestibular system. Because if you have one of your canals, your posterior, your anterior, your horizontal canals, that is seeking activation, like there's something that's going on, so it's seeking stimulation for your brain, then if you constantly have the head tilt that you mentioned, it might not be your eyes, but your eyes will start to adjust because of your vestibular system, right? But it could be like, you could have a suppressed eye. Like, I found out that I had a suppressed left eye, right? So there's certain things, like, I was clueless. I had no idea I had a suppressed left eye. Here we are doing the drills, going through them, testing ourselves and figuring out what works and what doesn't. And I'm like, hey, I can't do this thing. Like, what's going on? And it was like, well, you got a suppressed left eye. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. That's new to me, right? Anything else there? Yes, go ahead and ask, Sharon.
What is a suppressed eye?
Your prefrontal cortex on the opposite side of whichever eye it is just basically isn't getting the blood flow that it needs. And there's something in the brain that's saying, hey, there was a threat at some point in time during this. So let's just rely on your dominant eye. Let's not worry about sending blood flow to this area of the brain, that's what's, I might not be describing it 100% correctly in the best of terms, but that's essentially what's going on. Is if you can turn that eye back on and you can be doing vision drills with that left eye, then you're getting more activation in your right frontal cortex. Okay. And you brought up reminded me of another thing that Dr. Ryan brought up, right? The reason it's our eyes are the highest level of threat and our vestibular is next is because the eyes are closest to the brain. So they're going right into the occipital lobe, right? Like it's just right there. Ears are obviously really close. And then you'll see through the program, the connection between the vision and the vestibular system. And there's drills that help both of those systems. So you're training the eyes and the balance at the same time. So they go hand in hand in terms of both being close to the brain, but that's why they're the highest level of threat, and they can create the biggest change at sometimes. Like it can just be a massive change, but other times, the first training that I went to was all based on proprioception. So they're watching me walk, and then they're having me do drills, but they can't get a change in my walk. So they're trying to figure it out. And I finally showed them my scar on my leg from where I compound fractured my femur. And all they did was rub my scar and provide some sensory information to that part of my leg. And then I walked, and then they saw the change in my walk that they had been trying to accomplish doing all of these other drills. So it's those uncovering the little magic pieces that can make bigger shifts or not bigger shifts. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we'll get into some more here. All right, share screen again. So how do you know if an exercise is actually good for you? This is the magic piece to knowing yourself. So when you understand your body and the assess and the reassess process that we're going to talk about here, then at any moment in time, you can kind of assess your body because you know your body, and you can see, is my nervous system feeling threat right now, or is my nervous system feel safe? Okay. So there's different types of assessments. You can be doing a range of motion with your torso. So you're seeing how far you twist from side to side. And that's what he's doing here in the left. And you would kind of like warm yourself up a little bit. So it's not just the first time you go. And then and understand, okay, that's where I'm at right now. And the more you practice these things, then at any point in time, if you do that assessment, you're like, oh, I'm good right now. Or, ooh, I'm not doing real well. I better do some good drills, right? You can do raising your hand, as you see in the middle picture here. So it can be bringing your arms straight up and looking for your range of motion, or it can be looking for your range of motion from the side. And when you do this one, you want to make sure to remember to lock your elbow out. And you what's your range of motion? Does it feel better? Does it not feel better? The third picture here, he's showing you the range of motion in his shoulder. Like, how far back does my hand go? And how far down does my hand go? So you can kind of see those. And I actually, when I do that one, I recruit I had a rotator cuff injury here. So I recruit more in my shoulder when I test that one versus if I test my left side. So one side can be different than the other. You do not want to test in an area that you have pain. So you always want to be assessing and then reassessing something that, it could be bending over to your toes. For some people, when you bend over, your whole vestibular system changes, right? So for some people, the touching your toes isn't a good drill, right? Same thing with the neck. Like, I love to use my neck. And right now I can tell like my neck's not doing very well right now, but I'm looking down at a computer. But again, if you don't know your vestibular system and you keep assessing your neck, looking back and forth, well, you can upset yourself, right? So you want to find a movement that, it could just be your arm going backwards, like how far, And again, you want to try to stand straight up, or you keep your posture, and you're looking for your range of motion. Now, when you do a test for a positive assessment, you'll see a shift. You'll be more flexible, or you might be less flexible, or you'll be about the same. You're looking for the drills that give you the biggest assessments. So if you do a drill and you get that's kind of positive, like that was okay, that's not a bad thing for your body. But your body isn't just like loving that drill. Where if you find a drill where like you get a big shift in your range of motion, now it's like, oh, my body likes that. And then the real magic happens when you stack some of these drills on top of one another, and you're doing like a breathing drill with a vestibular drill that's integrating with your vision. And now all three of those things for your individual nervous system can then really excite your body. So you can really get flexible all of a sudden. You're like, whoa, like that's magic. I've never been able to bend over and touch my toes that well. That kind of magic is what we're finding here, right? So let's try some drills. So if everybody can figure out an assessment and a reassessment for them. And our first drill, we're gonna be able to demo this pretty well. We're gonna take our fingers and we're gonna push our finger back into our knuckles. Just kind of like you're jamming it, like a little jam that's going on in your finger. Like give yourself a jam.
So before you do that, though, you
We
want to
should
do the
assess.
assessment. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. I did my assessment. I mentioned it, but yeah, did you do your assessment? Then jam your finger. And that's okay. We're going to fix your finger in a minute anyway. So if you didn't assess yourself the first time, you're going to see a bad assessment this time. So if I do look at my neck again, it's not very good. And then you go ahead and you fix your finger and you just pull on it. Just kind of like give it a nice little pull. Nothing violent, just gradual. And then you can do your assessment again. And now my neck got better. It's not great. It's not as good as my neck flexibility will get, but it got better. What's going on, Sharon? Come on video for me.
So I'm unclear about what assessment we're doing with what test to experience a change. Are we turning the head? Are we laterally lifting the arm? Help.
I appreciate the question. It's a great question. There's no right or wrong. It's what's best for you. So I don't know what moves best for you. So if you want to try and test your shoulder to test it out, then you would do it. If you want to show me and you want feedback from a coach as you're doing it, then I can tell you. The thing is that you want to be consistent in whatever it is that you're testing so that you know yourself. But
this sounds too loosey-goosey, Joe. Like if we're working with the hand, or is the assessment a shoulder movement, a neck movement?
It can be the assessment can be any range based on where you're working. It won't matter. If you're testing your vestibular system, it's going to matter if you're swifting your neck. But if it's just testing the sensory and within your body, like I tested my finger and then looked at my neck. Dr. Ryan, did you do a different assessment? I didn't catch. I saw you.
I did the arm, because think about it like this. Yes, we did something with the finger, but think about that as it's all about the brain. It's all about the neurology. So the brain works the same way. You can use whatever assessment. You could bend down and touch your toes, or like for your assessment, see how far you get touching your toes, do the drill, test it again, and see if that improves. Even though it's a different area of the body, it's still working on the neurology. So it's whatever assessment you use, though, whether it's touching your toes. In the past, I used to use this one, and then I would do the drill, the sensation or movement drill, lymphatic system drill, or whatever one I was working on, and then retest. But you don't want to use two different assessments. Say, okay, I'm going to assess here. All right, do the drill, and then now I'm going to assess this. You have to use the same assess, reassess. Does that make sense?
totally clear on the same assess, reassess. That makes complete sense to me. What I'm not clear about is how any given assessment and then any given drill is going to plug the brain and light up the whole neural circuitry.
So it's your body either feels safer or it feels more threatened based on the drill. And it doesn't so much matter where the drill is or where it's connected for you to get the communication from your nervous system. So the finger isn't related to the drill at all.
So
The assessment, the finger is the drill. The finger was the drill we were doing. It's not related to how you assess at all.
So what we're doing is plugging into the body, getting out of the threat activation in the brain, going to the body to increase safety, and that's how it shifts. Is
Correct.
that okay?
Correct.
Now I understand.
So,
Thank you.
And it shows up in the body as better range of motion, or like in this case.
Better or easier or fuller
Yes.
or whatever that may be.
Mhm.
Okay.
Great
So-
question.
So for just to kind of recap, if you do an assessment, and I'll do one here. So if we do my shoulder, and then I jam my finger, and I do my shoulder again, I can't go down near as far. The up's okay, but I can't go down. So now I pull on my finger again, and now I do the assessment. My body likes it again. Okay. So on the first call, we talked about the vision drill for safety of covering your eyes. On this call, let's talk about assess again. So you have an assessment of where you're at. And then we'll do the safety for our vestibular system, could be like covering your ears or plugging your ears. So go ahead and try covering your ears for like 30 seconds. Okay, now let's reassess. My body definitely like that. So one of the big, if you've got earplugs, you can test yourself by putting an earplug in one side of your ear and then test yourself by putting an earplug in the other side of your ear. Because it's usually if you just plug one ear, then your brain will get a little bit more activation going on to it. So for anybody who's got earplugs, a little tip thrown in there, I guess. Right.
And typically, is it left side parasympathetic? I know we talked about that, or is that for vestibular or auditory not really that applicable?
That's for smell and for the vagal nerve drill.
Oh, okay.
So like in the first BYOG party, we assessed and then reassessed, and we shook our left ear to activate our parasympathetic nervous system to help us calm down. And the same thing is true then if you've got like a lavender smell, you can test your nostrils. And the left side should be more calming than the right side. But if you're using lavender, you want to, with essential oils, you want to test both nostrils. And if both nostrils don't test positive, then you don't want to diffuse that essential oil in the air. Because while it might be activating for your left nostril, it can be threatening to your right nostril, and then the brain gets confused and it's not necessarily doing good in your environment. Do you have another favorite drill, Dr. Ryan, that we should all assess and look after right now?
Probably not. Yeah. Because it's too in depth. I like the lymphatic drill, but the big six.
Well, that's a good one for the first week of the training for sure.
Right.
Are there any questions? Go ahead, Sharon.
Thank you. So essentially, the assess, drill, reassess is shifting us from sympathetic to parasympathetic. The tone of the body shifts and the range of motion increases.
Or you can get a positive reaction from activating the sympathetic. So it's not always about the parasympathetic, especially for somebody who's an athlete, because they want things turned on and they want to be able to go, right? So for their types of training, you can be activating the sympathetic, and it's a good thing for your body because your body wants to perform for you. But if your body wants to perform for you and you're doing sympathetic activation and you're not getting the results that you want, then you definitely want to make sure you're assessing and reassessing, because you're probably getting a negative assessment, which is why you're not getting the performance that you want. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead, Sheila. No, is that a cat's ear? I thought it was your hand. Sorry. Dog's ear. Okay. Share screen again here. So did we cover all these things? We did not cover the threat thermometer. So the threat thermometer is kind of that feeling that you have inside yourself that we were just talking about there, Sharon, right? Like if your body gets into so much threat, your thermometer gets raised, then you need to find the stuff that's going to help bring that threat level down so that the body can feel safer. And you're going to get a more maximum performance when your threat thermometer is lower than if it's higher. So I like to think like from the emotional standpoint, when you're dealing with family and you're with friends and things can get kind of heated and you feel voices rise and there's tension, like your nervous system is connected to other people's nervous systems. So when you're feeling that anxiousness, that rise, that emotions that come up inside of you where you're talking a little bit louder, like that's a great example of being in community and being in connection and experiencing the threat thermometer going up. Or you can be in a room with people who just like light you up and you feel so calm and you can be yourself, and that decreases your threat thermometer. So there's ways that we know this language in our life, but we don't necessarily have the training skills with these higher order systems that, can just skyrocket difficulties that you might be experiencing in life, whether it's pain or physically or emotionally.
So Joe, I did think of one, and again, we covered it in the first training, but I would love to just increase the value of the people here. Explain the one thing I love, especially with people in pain, is if they have an area of pain, like let's say it's their right shoulder, and they're not comfortable, or the threat increases because of that pain, or they can't move it, or it's the left hip, or it's the right knee. Explain the drill and like the sensation or movement type drill that they can do in a different area of their body because of how the brain is wired to help decrease the pain in that painful area. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yep, I think so. So the way, whether we're talking, and that's the nerves that are coming up into our head, or we're walking, how force gets distributed through us. If we're typing with the fingers on a keyboard, then it's coming down our arms. So the way this force production comes up, it comes up your right leg and then crosses over at your hips and goes up into your left arm and the left side of your body. And then the same thing with your left leg. It comes up and it crosses in your hips and it goes over into the right side of your body. So our right hip is kind of like our left shoulder. Our right shoulder is kind of like our left hip. Our right ankle is like our left wrist. So if you're having right ankle pain, you can be getting rewards and activating the parts of the brain that you need to by moving your left wrist. And we go a little bit deeper into that, right away in the first week of training, because these are the things that remap the brain that allow us to feel safer.
Yeah, I like that one because it's a simple thing that people can do. And it's getting the rewards, like you said, without feeling the threat of pain of moving that area. Again, if it's your left hip, then, shoulder rotations, or even the sensation, right? You could get a washcloth and, well, you can actually do the injured area like you did on the scar of your compound fracture and get the rewards there. Does that mean, okay, I do it once and it's completely better? We know that's not the case. We do simple and consistent here, right? But you'd want to, again, assess, do the drill, either the sensation or the movement, reassess and see what the reward is from your nervous system.
So just, another tip just to add to this, like if you do so I've got right hip pain. So I'm going to work with my left shoulder. Now there's two things that I want to assess here. Right away, I can assess a sensory. So I can just touch my shoulder and then I can reassess. My body likes that, and then assess first, but I did no. So now because I warmed that up, I know I can do something else with this shoulder. But if I would have done some sensory stuff to this and my range of motion would have gotten to be less, then working with my left shoulder to do shoulder circles wouldn't be good. So sometimes when people get too much traumatic brain injury or emotional things that take place, things get mixed up in the brain. So for that individual, even though it's the right side, they can benefit potentially from their right shoulder. So they would then go ahead after testing the left side and then test the right, and then see again, if I assess, not as good. My body liked more of the activation through my left shoulder than it did on my right.
And I love this because the beauty of this is the assess and the reassess. It's, again, knowing your body, knowing what your brain likes and what it doesn't like.
So, and then if you find something your body likes, like the shoulder circles. So if I'm doing shoulder circles because my body likes doing that, I don't need to do 50,000 of them. I just need to do a few 5 times a day. And one direction, then another direction. You might do 3 sets of a few of those. And that's how you're just building up the reps. But 3 minutes at a time throughout your day. It's just the little awareness thing. If I brush my teeth, I do this drill. If I do this other thing, I'll do this drill. Like finding little things in your day that you can anchor it in. When I get in the car and I go for a drive, I practice my breathing drills.
And yes, and this isn't like physical training. Neuro training is different than physical training. It's not about getting the burn and feeling worn out and that type of thing. And that's what, again, especially if you have an athletic background, sometimes you think you have to get to that point, that more is better. And especially with this, I know from personal experience, I know Joe does too. If you do, and the people who did the first neurospine and posture program, when they started to do too much, they would get headaches. They would maybe get like vestibular, like dizziness, because they weren't really listening to their body and they needed to like slow down. Again, more isn't better. So yes, that's one of the things that I learned through this whole thing is just take it easy.
Yeah, and when you're listening to the program, don't just try to do what I'm saying when I'm saying it. Like, let me finish talking about whatever the point is, because some of the people in the program at some point would just keep doing a vestibular drill, and then they were at, I don't feel good. It's like, we already determined you were in threat. Stop doing the drill. It's not good. So
And the last point I want to say too is, don't allow this to confuse you. Like, okay, what assessment do I do? Again, I'm a fan of making lists. Just write down like 4 or 5 of them. So then you don't have to think, okay, which one do I do? And it can be the same one each time, but okay, we got the shoulder raise. We have the external rotation, internal rotation, actually, the trunk rotation, the touching the toes, the head, and those can be your assess, reassess. Because I know I've fell into like even a threat, like, oh, which one do I do?
And for some people, the assess and reassess, for like an athlete, for example, like they might do 5 push-ups and then do their drill and then do 5 push-ups. And what do those push-ups feel like to them? The one gentleman that I work with, he's always trying to improve his balance. So his test is standing on 1 foot. Like, what's his balance like if he stands on 1 foot? After he gets done doing the drill, is he stronger standing on that 1 foot? So there's a ton of assessments and reassessments that you can find for yourself. And I didn't mean to make it, so complex and then add to it again by saying, hey, you can do these physical things. But it's you getting to know your body. So it's, what are the things that you do where you feel a normal range of motion versus a range of motion that just doesn't feel good right now. Like the gymnast is going to choose, how far can I bend over and touch my toes? But if you're not a gymnast, then you might not be doing that. But I know at the pickleball court, some of the people could barely get past their knees. And after they did a few drills, they were touching their toes. So sometimes seeing if you can touch your toes is kind of a cool test. Any other questions? All right, cool. So let's go. Boo-boo, sorry. It's not. You're a tech wizard until you're not, Ryan. Come on.
So not able to, oh, there we go.
It's just starting to get warm, so it got slow on me. So what does it cost to fix the spine? So if you're someone who's having issues, or you don't want to have issues later in life and you want to avoid this, like if someone's having troubles, like what does it cost to really regroup yourself? Do you want to undo damage, or are you simply getting worse? So every individual has to decide where they're at. The cost is going to vary depending on your dedication, what results you're actually looking for. Are you someone like Ryan and I that are just looking for optimum longevity and being physically fit? Or if your results are simpler than that, it doesn't matter, right? Like, what are your life circumstances? Each of these come with a different level of cost. So a spine rehabilitation program can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. Working with a chiropractor, regular visits. Ryan could probably talk more about the stretching that they'll do for you. The neuro trainers charge anywhere from $150 to $300 an hour. Or for like myself, I just sell so many packages. Like, I want people who are in it for the long haul, not somebody who wants to dabble and see how it feels after one session, right? And that's kind of what this program is about. Is it's for the people who really want to learn themselves, and they know what the drills are, and they're going to practice, and they're going to experiment, and they're going to put in the work to make it happen, right? And we want to make this really easy for you, and we want you to have that skin in the game that shows that you're dedicated to doing the drills and putting in the work and the effort and everything that goes there, right? The transformation is kind of in the sale. Like, how much does it hurt to make that payment for you to be able to say, no, I'm going to keep doing that because I paid X dollars for it. It was kind of a tough lesson for me to realize, but it's so true in life when we want this growth and we want this transformation. So this is what's in the program. You'll get access to the BYOG Party Master Your Brain, which is week 1. We covered the assess and reassess, so it's the same thing that we're kind of doing here today, but with different pieces of information. And then week 2 is the movement and the sensory drills and the breathing drills that I mentioned a few times during this call. Like, this is the stuff that makes us feel safe, when we can really start to remap the brain and get our movements going and that kind of thing. Like, that week is just gold. And then the rest of it is just taking it into these higher order systems, the vestibular system drills. Then we talk about integrating some vision drills with the vestibular system. And then we move into the vision drills and the vestibular drills that you can integrate in there, right? So like I said, I really want this to be a $1,000 program that Dr. Ryan are putting together and for our business model and putting this thing into the future. That's what we're looking to do for this. And if you're getting the program, there's going to be 5 weeks of training, because I really want to have more interaction with people who are doing the drills, learning how their body is responding, and then showing up to the calls saying, hey, this is what I figured out, help me next. Right? Like, what's the next thing that I can do, or what does this mean if I'm learning that? So I don't want people to just get the program and not have the ability to ask questions and go through it. So we're going to do 5 weeks to cover each of the topics, week 2 through week 6, not so much the assess and reassess. That can be discussed any week. And it's going to be on Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. The last time we did it, the daytime seemed like it was a bit of a problem. So I want to move a little bit more towards the evening and help some more people, make it a better time for people in those regards. Plus, when you buy today, you get Dr. Ryan's Stronger Spine Training Program, which is a $499 value. If you're on his email list, you've probably seen him talk about it. And I'm going to extend access to another live training about calming anxiety. And we're going to talk about a lot of the drills that I started doing that made things start to stick. And it was something that I realized a lot of people needed that were already in the program. When they were going through it, I was like, oh, your body's in threat. Oh, your body's in threat. Like, they needed a way to find some tools that would change that. So this training is going to be a little more tool-based, but providing the information of what those tools are and what they do. So you're also going to get access to that. So this is version 2.0, and we're going to be charging $497 for it. But today, since you've been joining us, and for the people that are going to be catching the replay, we wanted to be able to give you an offer of $100 off for the fast action takers, because there's 6 weeks of training, so you can get access to it right away as soon as you buy program. You can go in and start watching the material, and then January 16th will be the time when you get to come on and do that and ask questions. And I will get another live training in there for the people that do take action right away and they're getting going and they've got questions. I'm going to come up with a couple other times between now and then for the group to come in and ask questions for whatever it is that they're learning. And so I'll go ahead and drop that link in the chat here in a second, but make sure you write down this BYOG 23 is the coupon code to save that $100. And that's going to go until Sunday night at midnight. Are there any questions?
So essentially, they get the recordings and you're able to go through those. But like Joe had mentioned, when you get it and you look at don't try to do all 6 modules in the same day or the 5 modules in the same day. Watch him explain it and don't do the drill until he's done explaining it. Okay. So if you get it, like you said, because that's what was one of those things where people would start doing them as soon as he said it, but then it would be too much.
So practice, practice, practice. That's the difference of how you notice these things start to shift and change, and whether it's just, something somebody's telling you. If you don't experience it through the practice, you just don't know what this stuff can do for you. And it's life changing for you to know that you're going to go see a practitioner and you understand your body. Like if you're getting chiropractic adjustments and you know your vision drills, after you get adjusted and you do your vision drills, they find that the chiropractic adjustments hold longer. So there's a lot of benefits of knowing these different systems and what they mean for you choosing your healthcare and what you can do with it. So as always, there's no questions. Be your own guarantee. And appreciate everyone for coming. And Dr. Ryan has got another announcement here. If you know anybody that's been struggling with long COVID, if you know anybody that's just struggling to get their energy back, and they can't get their smell back, they're struggling to get their taste back, tomorrow at noon Pacific Standard Time, there's going to be a free informational webinar that you can also attend. That's more, it's neurodrill based, just like this today, but it doesn't have, it's not just focused on the higher order systems. It's focused on the nervous system stuff for the people who are struggling with the long COVID symptoms.
Yeah, I'm going to get the link for you here. Because it's for energy, and actually, yeah, I think I got it here. Again, it's a free training, free webinar, goes into even more details here. Let me get that chat.
The more neuro that Dr. Ryan and I can kind of show you and teach you, the more you have these interactions of what that means in your life. And that's why, even though we're talking about a different program today, we want to share another one, because neuro connects everything.
Yeah. There it is. It's in the chat. Just copy and paste that. But it's tomorrow, I think. What time's it at?
Noon Pacific Standard Time.
Okay, so 3:00 Eastern. All right, got it. What better way to spend a Friday, right?
Right.
All right, very cool. But no, I will be sending out the replay tomorrow. So if you're still here, let's see, still got people on the call. Look for that so you can really hone in on these the assessment, the drills that we went over. And then remember, Joe's birthday is right December 11th, so that's why the offer ends. $100 off ends at that on that Sunday. Happy birthday, man, if I don't talk to you before then, but I'm sure I will.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. BYOG.